You didn't expect there comes a moment in life not marked by loss or tragedy, but by a strange silence. A stillness after holding on for far too long. You've fought, you've begged, you've held on to the thing you love, the person you need, or the version of yourself that once made sense. And then, it slips. Not in an explosion, but like a ghost exiting your body. What follows isn't freedom, it's fear. Because what do you do when the only thing that defined you is gone? Letting go is not some poetic closure. It's a psychological earthquake. It threatens the identity you've built, the stories you've believed, and the control you swore you had. This isn't about moving on. This is about surviving the death of what no longer fits. And most people don't survive it fully. They pretend, they suppress, they rebuild too soon. But you're here because you're ready to understand what really happens when the human mind has no choice but to release. This is the psychology of letting go. Letting go isn't just emotional, it's neurological. Your brain physically bonds with what it grows familiar with, whether it's a person, a habit, a dream, or even your own pain. Over time, it weaves that thing into your identity. And when you try to let it go, the brain doesn't read it as growth. It reads it as death. This is why grief feels so chaotic. It's not just about losing someone or something, it's about losing the version of you that was tethered to it. The mind revolts. You start questioning reality. You ask if you made the right choice, if you could have done more, if this emptiness is permanent. And in that spiral, the pain isn't just sadness, it's disorientation. In psychology, we talk about ego identity, the idea that your self-concept is made of roles, values, attachments. When those things shatter, the ego doesn't dissolve peacefully, it screams. It tries to bargain, to reconstruct, to deny. But the deeper truth is this: growth can't begin until something ends, and the death of the old self is required. Letting go then isn't the finish line, it's the funeral. And funerals aren't clean. They're messy, emotional, filled with regret and confusion. But they're necessary. You can't evolve while dragging the corpse of your past. But people try. They stay in toxic relationships because they don't want to face themselves. They hold on to dreams that are no longer theirs because they're scared to have none. They replay old memories because the silence of the present is unbearable. And slowly they rot inside their own resistance. To let go truly is to allow space for identity death. Not just to lose, but to surrender. And in that surrender, you aren't weak. You're human. But most people won't tell you that. They'll say, move on. They'll say, be strong. What they really mean is, don't scare us with your grief. But if you can face it, hold it. Let it burn. You're already ahead. Because what's waiting on the other side of that pain isn't more suffering. It's the beginning of something that was never possible while you were still holding on. Most people don't hold on because of love. They hold on because of fear. Fear of emptiness. Fear of uncertainty. Fear that what comes next might not feel as good as what just ended, even if what ended was destroying them. That's the paradox of the human mind. It craves comfort more than truth, routine more than liberation. When you grow attached to something, a relationship, a dream, a reputation, your mind doesn't just enjoy it. It builds safety around it, a predictable script, a psychological home. And when that home starts to fall apart, even if the walls are toxic, even if the air is suffocating, the brain still begs you not to leave, because leaving means stepping into a world where you have no script. Letting go means you have to trust life again. But how do you trust life after it's already betrayed you? After someone you loved left? After something you built crumbled? After every version of forever turned into a graveyard of almosts? So you stay. You revisit old texts. You fantasize about second chances. You go through photos like maybe memory can resurrect something that's already dead. But that's not love. That's fear trying to drag a corpse back to life. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you and love the people with whom fate brings you together. But do so with all your heart." But what he also understood was impermanence. That nothing, not even the people you love most, are truly yours to keep. And resisting this truth doesn't make it less real. It just delays your healing. People often mistake letting go as betrayal, as if releasing something means it never mattered. But the truth is, when something mattered and you let it go anyway, that's not betrayal. That's bravery. You're not erasing the past. You're honoring it by not letting it destroy your future. The fear is real. But fear is not a fact. It's a signal, and sometimes the signal is wrong. Sometimes the fear of letting go is just the final grip of the ego trying to keep you small, familiar, contained. You're not here to be contained. Letting go isn't saying, "It didn't matter." It's saying, "It mattered, but I mattered too." And the moment you accept that, the fear starts to loosen its grip. You begin to see not just what you've lost, but what you're finally making room for. Letting go hurts so much because it shatters the illusion we cling to the most: control. You think you're holding the relationship together, the career together, the identity together. You believe deep down that if you just try harder, say the right words, be more patient, give more time, you can fix it. But what you're really doing is bargaining with reality, and reality never bargains. Control is comforting because it gives you the illusion of safety. It lets you believe you have power over other people's choices, over time, over fate. But the truth is brutal. You don't. And the more you try to grip what's slipping away, the faster it cuts into you. In therapy, there's a term called magical thinking. It's when someone believes their thoughts, actions, or wishes can influence events that are actually outside their control. Most people live their whole lives this way. They think if they're good enough, life will go as planned. If they love hard enough, the person won't leave. If they stay long enough, the pain will mean something. But life doesn't work that way. Life doesn't reward effort with outcomes. It rewards alignment, with truth, with timing, with growth. And sometimes growth means surrendering control before it breaks you. Victor knew this better than anyone. Stripped of everything, his family, freedom, even his name, he found that the only thing he could control was his response. And in that response, he found power. Between stimulus and response, there is a space, he wrote. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Letting go is that space. It's the moment between the pain and the reaction. It's choosing stillness over panic, breath over force, trust over manipulation. You cannot control how people treat you. You cannot control who stays. You cannot control what life takes from your hands, but you can control how you rebuild. And the most unstoppable people in the world, the ones you admire, they're not the ones who held on the longest. They're the ones who knew when to stop gripping and start growing. You don't need more control, you need more courage. Because the truth is, every time you try to force what isn't meant for you, you block what is. And when you finally loosen your grip, when your hands stop bleeding from holding on too tightly, you might just find they're finally free enough to receive something greater. Letting go isn't a switch you flip. It's not a single decision or a one-time cry. It's a grieving process, slow, messy, and deeply human. And what you're grieving often isn't a person or a place. It's the ghost of who you were when that person or place still made sense. We don't just miss what we lost. We miss the version of us that was alive in that moment, the laughter we shared, the certainty we had, the hope we felt. That's the real grief. Saying goodbye not just to someone else, but to the self that once believed this would last forever. And grief doesn't follow logic. You can know something ended for the best. You can understand why it had to happen. But your body, it still remembers the scent, the silence, the timing of the goodbye. And some days all of that returns like a wave that doesn't ask for permission before it crashes. Psychologically, this is what makes letting go so complicated. You're not just releasing the external. You're untangling years of emotional wiring, the memories, the expectations, the identity roles that made you feel needed, seen, safe. And when those collapse, your nervous system doesn't congratulate you, it panics. It scrambles for familiarity. That's why you think about going back, not because you want it, but because your mind hasn't caught up to your decision yet. Viktor Frankl spoke about suffering not as something to avoid, but as something to transform. He believed that suffering, when faced with honesty, could lead to meaning, and grief, when allowed to move through you, doesn't weaken you. It remakes you, but only if you let it. Most people try to shortcut grief. They distract themselves, rush into new relationships, bury themselves in work, or worst of all, pretend they've healed just to make others comfortable. But repressed grief doesn't disappear, it mutates. It turns into cynicism, resentment, fear of intimacy, or emotional numbness. Letting go requires space, not just physically but psychologically. A sacred place where you're allowed to fall apart without judgment, where the pain doesn't have to be justified or edited, where you can cry for the memory without needing to go back to it. Because here's the truth, healing is not forgetting, and peace is not pretending. You don't owe the world a fast recovery, you only owe yourself a real one. So if you're still crying months later, you're not weak. If you still miss them after you've moved on, you're not broken, you're just human. And being human means you're allowed to feel, deeply, irrationally, and repeatedly, until something inside you finally lets go, not because it has to, but because it's ready. And that moment, when it arrives quietly, without announcement, that's not the end of the story. That's the beginning of your return. The hardest part about letting go isn't the pain. It's the fear that you'll lose who you are if you release what defined you. That without the relationship, the goal, the old dream, you'll be empty, unanchored, unknown. But here's what most people never realize. Letting go isn't about losing who you are. It's about uncovering who you were before the attachment started defining you. The real self, the one beneath the roles, the patterns, the emotional scars, has always been there, waiting. And letting go is the painful excavation of that self from the wreckage of who you thought you had to be. Steve Jobs once said, "Getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me." At the time, he didn't know that. He was broken. His life's purpose had collapsed. But the letting go of Apple forced him to rebuild not a company, but a self. One that didn't depend on titles, control, or public identity. He didn't rise because he fought for the past. He rose because he walked away from it. That's what letting go demands. Not that you erase your history, but that you rewrite your relationship with it. You stop being the one who was abandoned, the one who failed, the one who's stuck, and you become the one who adapted, who evolved, who reclaimed their authorship. Michael A. Singer, the author of The Untethered Soul, talks about letting go not as a concept, but as a way of life. He didn't just give up control of his outcomes, he surrendered the entire idea that he needed to know what was coming next. He let life unfold moment by moment without resistance, and in that surrender he found peace more powerful than success. That's the invitation, to let go by practicing presence, day by day, moment by moment. It's in the way you stop reaching for closure that'll never come, the way you let the silence teach you something instead of filling it with noise, the way you allow discomfort without trying to kill it. Letting go is a discipline. You train for it like a muscle. It means setting boundaries even when it feels cruel. It means deleting the messages you've reread 100 times hoping they'd mean something new. It means not checking their social media even when curiosity eats at you, not because you're heartless, but because you're healing. Because every time you choose the present over the past, you stitch a thread into the new version of yourself. And when you stop needing life to explain itself, when you stop needing people to validate your pain, when you stop demanding that your story feel fair, you become untouchable, not cold, not numb, but free. Letting go doesn't mean you don't feel, it means your feelings don't own you. It means your past no longer narrates your future. And it means the space that opens up inside you is no longer terrifying. It's sacred. This is where you begin again, not by becoming someone else, but by remembering who you were before you forgot. There comes a quiet moment after the storm. Not peace exactly, but absence. The noise is gone. The obsession, the replaying, the desperate what-ifs finally lose their grip. And for the first time in what feels like forever, you don't feel broken. You feel empty. But not the kind of empty that scares you, the kind of empty that feels like space. Space for something new. This is where most people get scared again. They think healing means going back to who they were before the pain. But that version of you is gone, and that's the point. Letting go isn't about returning. It's about rewriting, reinvention. There's a version of you that's waiting to be born, not out of effort, but out of release, out of stillness, out of truth. It doesn't shout for attention. It whispers. And if you're too busy holding on, clinging to your suffering like it's a badge of depth, you'll miss it. Because here's the most terrifying truth about letting go. It works. You stop needing what you thought you couldn't live without. You stop chasing people who were never coming back. You stop performing for love and you start recognizing it when you give it to yourself. This rebirth doesn't happen all at once. It's slow. It's quiet. It happens in the way you stop checking your phone, in the way your breath deepens, in the way your laughter returns without warning. One day you wake up and you realize you didn't think about them. You didn't ache for the past. You didn't feel like a ghost in your own life. You felt alive. Michael A. Singer calls this the shift from the personal self to the witness self, the moment when you stop being the one who's suffering and start becoming the one who observes, learns, and transforms. That's real power, not forcing life to bend to your will, but trusting that you can survive whatever it brings. Letting go was never about forgetting. It was about remembering who you are without the noise. And who you are, under all the pain, the fear, the longing, is someone who was never meant to hold on forever. You're here to evolve, to feel, to shed, to rise. So stop asking for closure from people who never knew how to open themselves. Stop waiting for permission to move on. You don't need a sign. You are the sign. Let this be the day you stop gripping what's already gone. And in that release, watch who you become.